In today's video, you are going to learn what a built-in function in R is. First, let's add the heading built-in function to our R script. The first question you might have is, what is a function? And a function is, very simply, it's some code that does something for you. It makes some job that you want done easier to do. For example, imagine that you want to find the average of some numbers. You could take out a pen and paper and use a formula and figure out the average that way. Or you can come to R, where there is a built-in function to help you find the average of a group of numbers. The function is called mean. So first, using the help function with the question mark, we'll look at mean. So go ahead and run that code. And here in the help pane, you can see that this function helps you find the average of a group of numbers. It's a generic function for the trimmed arithmetic mean, which is a fancy way of saying the average. Here under usage, you can see how you use it. You pass in x, and then we can go down and look at arguments and see that x is an R object. So what this is telling us is that mean looks like this with open parentheses. Here are your parentheses. And we need to pass something into it that it will help us find the average of. Let's create an R object. We'll call it x. And we'll assign x to a bunch of numbers. And we'll do it like this. We'll start with a 0, and then we'll put a colon, and then we'll put the second number. So this means 0 to 100 by 1. So this represents 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we run x, we can see here that we have 0 to 100 and every number in between. And when we call something an object in R, it's just a fancy word for saying variable. So we're assigning 0 to 100 into this variable x. And now you can see that you can pass x to mean. And when we run this code, you can see that 50 gets returned. So the mean function is built in. The information that you give it is a group of numbers here, which we assign to this variable or object. And then we give that group of numbers to the mean function. So a function is something that takes an input. Here the input is the group of numbers, performs some action on it. Here it's finding the average of those numbers, and then the function returns something back to you. And in this example, what is returned back to you is a number that is the average of those numbers, 50. Built-in functions are actually how some of the things you have already learned work. For example, whenever you type 5 plus 1 and execute that code, 6 gets returned. Another way to write 5 plus 1 is to write plus, open parentheses, 5 comma 1. And when you run this code, you can see that 6 gets returned just like before. If we use the help function to look at the plus, and be aware that you need to use the quotation marks here so that R knows that you are using this as the plus sign. When we run the help function on plus, we see that this is called an arithmetic operator. And here are some other examples of arithmetic operators. And we can see that under the details, these are functions, like we're learning about. R makes some functions easier to use. Instead of having to write this, which looks like a little bit more difficult to understand code, R helps you understand it by allowing you to write 5 plus 1.